Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Granbury will now come to order at 6 p.m. on Monday, January the 8th, 2024, Granbury City Hall, City Council Chambers. I might make a reminder tonight, if you're coming to the podium to speak on any agenda item, or if you're the applicant, if you will please still turn the microphone on till it shows the red light, and then turn it off when you leave. We'd be much appreciated of that. The first order in the business is public comments on non-public hearing items. The only one we have today is that's a non-public hearing is some discussion about an upcoming comprehensive plan update. Is there anybody that would like to speak to that? If not, we'll move on to C on our agenda, our consent agenda. We have C1, approval of the regular meeting minutes, December the 11th, 2023, and C2 that's listed on your consent agenda. Do I have anyone that needs to pull any of those off of the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion by Mr. Hayes to approve the consent agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to our first public hearing tonight, which is D1. Consider a request of the City of Granbury to amend select sections of the City of Granbury Zoning Ordinance Article 1, Provisions, Section 1.7, Creation of Building Site, Section 2.3, Amendments, and Subdivision Regulations, Section 1, General Provisions 1.5, Jurisdiction, and Section 2, Procedures. Kira?
Thank you, ma'am. I just want to take a moment to introduce our speaker, our consultant that's been working on our zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinance amendments for us, Craig Farmer. So tonight we have the subdivision ordinance, and our next upcoming, I just wanted to mention real quick, will be the landscaping provisions that we'll look at next. So turn it over to Craig.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Again, Craig Farmer, your consultant on this project to make some amendments to the zoning and subdivision ordinances. The first item we have on the agenda is it's actually out of the zoning ordinance, and if you recall at your last meeting, you continued this item to tonight. So there was a public hearing. It was continued. This is the part, and it's actually pretty simple. You've got about 2 pages, almost 3 pages of ordinance to do remove about 4 paragraphs from the zoning ordinance. But on the last page of that document, you'll see what we've done is we've amended the section 1.7 creation of building site that talks in terms of you can't get building permits on a site that hadn't been platted. And item number 3 basically had 4 exceptions there and to the platting ordinance. And we are changing that just to reference the subdivision ordinance. So it doesn't help people to have exceptions to the platting ordinance and the zoning ordinance. They don't know to go look there. So that is all that is doing is removing those paragraphs A, B, and C, and it's coordinating paragraph 3 back with the platting ordinance. And I'll be glad to answer any questions on that one.
Any questions, commission members, on that one? Okay, no questions, so let you proceed on, please.
Okay. Then the next set of amendments is actually to the platting ordinance itself. Who's it? Oh, you're doing that for me. Thank you. No, you're good. So the sections that we amended were sections 1.5, where a plat's required, 2.4, procedures for approval of a preliminary plat. And I can go down the list. We actually amended the amending plat, minor plat, development plats, and replatting to have some administrative approvals. Next slide, please. The more significant part of those changes, and I won't go through them in detail on each one, but the first series of changes was the approval of plats and replats are delegated to your Director of Community Development and your Public Works Director. They both have to agree to administratively approve a plat, and we added signature blanks for their approvals to those. You already had it on amending plats. Minor plats is, you've had that for a long time, but in your ordinances, it did not delegate that. The state statute was recently changed to allow all those plats to be approved by the, administratively by a designated person. The part of that process that we looked at last time was on the slide there, number 5, but it's also in your ordinance, was that in each case, the administrative approval was subject to waivers and modifications going to the city council, or planning and zoning commission, you, and then to the city council. We have amended that based on your recommendation at the last meeting, and made provisions in here where the approvals of these documents could be done by the Director of Community Development and the Public Works Director. In the ordinance you've got, it's the bottom page 5, but basically you had suggested we come up with some criteria for the Public Works Director and the Community Development Director to approve waivers and modifications, so a lot of those wouldn't have to come to you also. And we developed those criteria that we have in there. There's basically 5 of them. You already had one. And so the considerations for approval of the waivers and modifications, if it's going to create a significant expense to the city, then that has to go through you and the city council. But you can approve, the two directors can approve others. You know, for example, where the requirement makes no sense in the specific application to the property being platted, those sorts of things. So there's some criteria in there that gives them the authority. It goes on to say that if the applicant appeals their decision, that goes to the city manager's office. And then if there's an appeal of that decision on a waiver or modification of the requirements, it gets treated as a variance at that point and comes to y'all and then goes to city council. So it converts from a waiver or modification to basically a variance and gets processed that way. Any questions on waivers or modifications? Okay. And that was y'all's suggestion, and that was actually a very good one. So we did some research and determined that they could approve those. And then in terms of the creating of a platting as a requirement to issue a building permit, we came up with additional criteria to give waivers. In the past, you have required, the city has required platting in order to get building permits to bring in accessory buildings or to add on to buildings because the ordinance wasn't real clear. And there were times when administrative discretion was used where it made no sense, but the ordinance did require it. So we clarified that and came up with those criteria that clearly says a plat is not required in those conditions. And that should eliminate some of the workload for staff, but more importantly for the citizens that fall under that in those categories, additions to the building, the existing structure. We said you can add up to 50% of an existing residential structure or up to 25% of a commercial structure that's sitting on unplatted land without having to plat. You can bring in an accessory building. You can take an accessory building on vacant land. And this actually happens more than you think. If you own the land next door and you want to put a garage on the parcel you own next to it, this would allow you to do it without having to plat it. And then finally, if it's damaged, you can fix that without platting up to 50% of the value. So it kind of parallels your non-conforming statute with zoning. So any questions on that part? I think that's going to help relieve a lot of the workloads for staff, but also a lot of the platting pain for some of the citizens. Next slide, please. Or am I at the end? Is that it? Okay. So the approvals for the plats, it's delegated to the Director of Community Development and the Public Works Director. If they decide not to approve it or don't feel comfortable, it goes to the city manager. And if and then from there it comes to y'all. So, and follows the old process. We did go back into replatting and clean some of the language up to follow and track the state statute on notification, and you'll find that on the last page. The state law says you don't count the number of lots within 200 feet, it's you count the area within 200 feet, and if it exceeds the 20% rule, then it takes a 3/4 vote to approve a replat of by the city council. So basically that brings, our initial objective was to have administrative approvals of plats and to not require plats in every situation where someone needed a building permit. And then it expanded into doing some statutory work on a lot of the rest of it. This still does not clean up all the statutory amendments that came out of the last legislature, and we're probably going to have to come back and look at some of that later, but this is some of the most important stuff. And I'll be glad to answer questions.
On that section where if they have a total fire, let's say, and there's still a slab, is that going to be obviously be more than 50%? Would they have to have a replat at that point?
The ordinance as it's worded now would. Previously, it was damaged at all in order to issue permits, it would. The ordinance as it's worded now is the 50%. That is just a number. I mean, you could actually change it to say just you could replace, a damaged structure as long as you're not expanding it to, more than the.
Let's just say it's on the same slab.
Yeah, it's
right.
on the same slab or something. No, that's just a number.
Okay.
And some other ordinances have 50%, but I've seen higher than that.
Okay, thank you.
Cody, you put that slide back up he's talking about, please? Thank you.
Yeah, it's that bottom one.
Yeah, it just seems like I'd kind of agree with that. That kind of puts a hardship on somebody who just went through a hardship to
Yes.
put the cost of platting on them when that normally you would be able to expand the footprint by 50%. So you ought to be able to at least put it back. And the bullet A allows you to expand the footprint by 50%. So any discussion on that last one?
Make a lot of sense.
I would agree with you, that if you're putting it back on the same slab.
You put it back on the slab, same slab, A lets you expand it, correct?
Yeah, and then you can expand it. It does allow that too, so. I mean, I'd almost suggest instead of bogging down in the details, just say you can replace it with the same type of structure.
One of the questions up here was, is E even needed?
Yes, yeah, it does happen.
Yeah, I'd feel better if you'd put that in the document.
You just have the ability to replace it?
Right, just to replace on the same slab.
We can do that, and the nice thing about that is determining current value is always an issue, so it solves that problem too.
Who determines it?
Any other questions for him on any of these? Are you done, Craig, or we have other slides?
I am done.
Okay. All
Unless you have
right. Well,
questions.
then, if you are, then I'm going to open the public hearing and see if we have anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this agenda item. If not, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion on this agenda item.
Chair, I'll move to approve the proposed amendments with the change to the rebuilding of a building that's been destroyed, that it can be rebuilt in the same footprint.
I have a motion by Mr. Hayes. Do I have a second to that?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Moore. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Farmer.
That'll be, those two items will go to the city council on their meeting February 6th, and we will have to advertise that zoning one because the council did not continue it. So, but it'll be taken up by them. We have time to do it. So it'll be at the February 6th meeting.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is D2. Consider request of the City of Granbury to amend the thoroughfare plan contained within the 2016 comprehensive plan. Cody?
Good evening, Ms. Chair and Commission. This is a identified road on the master thoroughfare plan for a continuance through Davis Road, where it would extend from US 377 into Granbury, Old Granbury Road. It's approximately 369 feet, located at 2118 East Highway 377 is where it would cut through. Considering this, the city should make the most effective cost investments. Right-of-way would need to be purchased from the property addressed at 2118, and it would result in a long, narrow, and potentially undevelopable property if that were to be coming, or would come to fruition. Notice was put in the Hood County paper. Staff recommends approval of the thoroughfare amendment. And the voting options for tonight: recommend approval of the thoroughfare amendment or recommend denial of the thoroughfare amendment.
Thank you, Cody. Is the applicant here? And if so, do you have any, would you like to speak?
This is brought on by the city.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. But yeah, right. All right, so I'll open the public hearing, see if there's anybody who would like to speak. And if not, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion on the request to amend the thoroughfare plan.
I'll make a motion to approve the thoroughfare amendment.
I have a motion by Mr. Hallman to approve as requested. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Haves. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is D3, consider request of Brian Gaffin to preliminary plat 1.390 acres of the John Stokely Survey, abstract number 523 as Lot 1, Block 1, Double Diamond Addition, located at 2118 East Highway 377. Cody?
This property is currently zoned heavy commercial and would need to be platted to be redeveloped. The proposed redevelopment is of a doctor's office. This is a copy of the preliminary plat, utility plan, and there are some variance requests with this plat. There's a variance to request sections 3.9 and 4.6 not to extend the water line as well as the wastewater collection line across 377. There's a variance request for 4.1 not to improve the streets to urban standards and 4.8 not to install streetlights. The city engineer has recommended approval of all the variances, including a conditional approval of the installation of the streetlights along Old Granbury Road until they actually develop and build out on the north side where it connects to Old Granbury Road. Staff recommends approval of the variances per the city engineer's memo, and staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat. The voting options for tonight: recommend approval of the variances or recommend denial of the variances, recommend approval of the preliminary plat, and recommend denial of the preliminary plat.
Thank you, Cody. Is the applicant here? And if so, would you like to speak?
We're here. We're available to answer any questions.
Any questions for the applicant? If not, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion first on the variances requested.
Chair, I move to approve the variances in accordance with the city engineer's memo.
I have a motion to approve the variances in accordance with the city engineer's memo. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Class. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now I would like to entertain a motion on the approval or the request for the preliminary plat, please.
Chair, I move to approve the preliminary plat.
A motion by Mr. Hafe to approve the preliminary plat as presented. A second?
A second.
Second by Mr. Watson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is D4, consider the request of Kelly Clark for a specific use permit for an amusement center, commercial, outdoor, temporary, and light commercial zoning. This property is located at 505 East Pearl Street. Cody?
This property is, looking at it, is actually just a portion of the city beach that would be used. The proposed use is going to be for the Bulls on the Beach event that happens yearly. It's zone light commercial, and SUPs have been granted for this event since 2016. I believe that was called off in 2020 for obvious reasons, but continued since then. This is the site plan. I tried to kind of draw it up where it was a little more visible. In the red areas where they're proposing putting the arena for the bull riding event. And the considerations for the planning and zoning is the use harmonious and compatible. Are the activities requested normally associated with this requested use, and is the nature of the use reasonable? City staff mailed out 10 public notices to the property owners within 200 feet, and it was also placed in the Hood County News. Staff recommends approval for the specific use permit for the amusement center commercial temporary outdoor with the following conditions. Operations and site improvements shall conform with the site plan. The SUP is subject to all other city codes and requirements, permits, periodic inspections, and inspection fee. Any violation of the terms stipulated could void the SUP. The recommend approval of the SUP subject to conditions as presented. Recommend approval of the SUP with modified conditions, or recommend denial of the SUP. Please note that there is a required 3/4 vote to approve this request, since there were no signatures from neighbors within 300 feet of a residential zone and 500 feet for the public address system that would be used.
Thank you, Cody. Is the applicant here? And if so, would you like to speak?
We're here just to answer any questions. This is our 11th year.
Any questions for the applicant? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Any kind of no signed up sheets, so I'll close the public hearing and entertain a vote on the SUP request, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the SUP,
A motion to approve the SUP
subject to the conditions.
with the
as
conditions by Mr. Hallman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Haves. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is D5. Consider request of Case Spears to, 1, amend the future land use map contained within the 2016 comprehensive plan from low-density residential to retail/office, and 2, rezone from R12 residential district to light commercial. The property is located at 505 South Morgan Street. Cody?
This property is platted as Lot 1, Block 139 of the Thrash addition, and they're proposing rezoning from R12 residential to light commercial. And in 2018, there actually was a zoning change, and I'm blanking on plan to change it from light commercial, which it was previously zoned, to residential, and amend the future land use plan as well to show that as low-density residential from retail commercial or retail office. These are just the considerations for a future land use amendment. And these are the considerations for the zoning change. On December 28th, city staff mailed out 23 public notices to all property owners within 200 feet, and it was also placed in the Hood County newspaper. At this time, we have had 0 letters of in favor or against. Staff recommends approval of the future land use amendment, and staff also recommends approval of the zoning change from R12 to light commercial. Voting options for tonight: recommend approval of the future land use amendment, recommend denial of the future land use amendment, or recommend approval of the zoning change, or recommend denial of the zoning change.
Thank you, Cody. I see the applicant, you have a speaker sheet. Would you like to speak? And if so, would you come to the podium?
I didn't know if I should fill it out or
Okay,
not.
that's okay, no problem.
I'm here for questions. Yeah.
Any commission members have any questions for the applicant? If you come to the podium, that would be great. Just state your name and address.
Case Spears, 505 South Morgan Street, Granbury, Texas. I don't know whether to use that address or my actual home address, but that's the one I put there.
Mr. Moore?
Okay, thank you. What are you going to put here on this property?
So I'm only going to remodel the property to make it more of an office use, so not putting anything there right now other than that. So I own the Visiting Angels here in town, and so was going to move my office into that building.
Will the magnolia tree remain up front? We've dealt with this property several times.
Yeah, I would like to leave it. I would like to keep as many trees as possible. It's just kind of dependent on parking. I'm not planning on putting any parking in the front. I'm putting it all in the back. So yes, I would plan on keeping that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir. I'll open the public hearing. Are there anyone that would like to speak on this agenda item? If not, I'll close the public hearing and entertaining a request first of the motion on amending the future land use map plan.
Chair, I'll move to approve the amendment to the future land use map.
A motion by Mr. Hafes to approve the amendment to the future land use map. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Hallman. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then we'll move on to the rezoning request, please.
Chair, I'll move to approve the zoning change.
I have a motion by Mr. Hafes to approve the rezoning request as presented. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Mr. Class. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. The next item on the agenda is D6. Consider request of Stephen Binkley for a specific use permit for auto sales used in auto repair, major uses in heavy commercial zoning. The property is located at 4301 East US Highway 377. Cody?
This property is at 4301 US Highway 377 and is 5.75 acres. It is platted as Lot 1, Block 1 of Van Griffiths Edition. The proposed use is to amend their SUP that's already there to add a new building, new sales building. With that, they would need to have the current new SUP for used sales and heavy auto repair. And that current SUP as it sits was approved in December of '09. Here's the proposed site plan. This is the interior floor plan of the new building. On December 28th, city staff mailed out 11 public notices, and it was also published in the Hood County newspaper. Staff recommends approval for this specific use permit, requesting auto sales used, automobile repair major, with the following conditions. All operations and site improvements shall conform with the site plan. This SUP is subject to all other city requirements, permits, periodic inspections, and an inspection fee is established by the city's master fee schedule. Any violation of the terms and conditions stipulated in the SUP may be deemed in violation of the zoning ordinance, and the SUP will become null and void, or the certificate of occupancy will be revoked. Voting options for tonight: recommend approval of the SUP subject to conditions as presented, recommend approval of the SUP with modified conditions, or recommend denial of the SUP.
Thank you, Cody. Is the applicant here, and if so, would you like to speak?
We're here to answer any questions.
Any questions for the applicant, commission members? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Do we have any public comments? It's quiet tonight. If not, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a vote on the specific use permit request, please.
Chair, I'll move to approve the specific use permit, subject to conditions as presented.
A motion by Mr. Host to approve the SUP as presented with conditions. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Moore. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, the last agenda item is staff is going to provide information regarding the upcoming comprehensive plan update.
Thank you. So I'm very excited about this project, and I hope you guys will be also. We're going to proceed with the update to the comprehensive plan. And I just wanted to take an opportunity this evening to introduce that. I think a couple of you might have been involved, or at least serving the city when the last comprehensive plan was prepared and updated. This is it's a routine that is expected every 10 or better years. Sometimes it's done more frequently. It just depends on the community. As you know, our city has had a good amount of development and change in the last several years, and our plan is ripe for updates. There will be parts that receive more attention than others, as some things have changed and others have remained pretty much the same. To speak very briefly on the process, what is proposed is a approximate 1 year task, so it would move very quickly and go through a series of 12 or so meetings, probably a few more than that, with the steering committee proposed for the Planning Commission as an idea, and you can speak amongst yourselves or, decide what you would like to do. With 2 members, as I think what we did in 2016, from what I've been advised and read, it appears that way. 2 members which would meet, review background information, review the project as it goes through the process a couple of times. We would also have open house meetings for the community, and then formal hearings by Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the City Council. So that's, we're embarking on that as a staff task. We'll be meeting with the consultant and taking them on a tour of the community, providing the policy documents and other information that we have that they need to provide updates in the documents that they'll be preparing for us as part of their contract. So we're looking at doing that here in February, and then probably coming forward after that tour sometime either late, well, it'd be March. It'd be a March meeting to work towards the steering committee meetings and the open house meetings and so on. So if there's anything you would like to know more about, I can try and answer your questions.
The only question that I remember I talked with you about is the ETJ. It'll only address things that we have developers agreements with. Is that right?
Right. That's where we're at right now, is if there's a development agreement of any type, whether it's a moratorium or a 380 or some other type of development agreement, that would be addressed in the ETJ.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff about what's coming up? All right. Do you need us to just appoint volunteers in March?
We probably should do that now if you're comfortable with that. Otherwise, we can wait. If someone wants to think about it a little bit.
We don't even have a full staff.
Yeah, we're missing two. We're missing 2 members, right? One's just absent.
Right.
The other one, I assume we're getting a new member sometime soon.
Appointments are pending. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you need it tonight?
I think it would be better for the project to get it started, because we will want to have steering committee meeting.
Okay.
So-
With volunteers? Richard? Randy? Huh? No one else down there? Thomas? Your term is up.
He doesn't know if he's being reappointed.
Oh. Yeah, so we don't know. Is anybody else's term up? Oh.
I think my term is up.
We don't know if y'all are getting axed or not. So. Okay, so what would you suggest?
Well,
When does council meet?
Council meets on February 6th,
Is that when they'll make appointments to P and Z? Is that on the agenda to make?
I believe the appointments are on the 16th, which is next.
Okay, so it's not something we have to vote on, so I can see who's reappointed and visit with my commission members and get with you after that meeting. Would that work? Or
I
do you
think
want
that
it
would be
sooner?
acceptable.
Is that okay with
And
you
we could do
guys?
that.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
All right, if nothing else is on the agenda tonight, the meeting is now officially adjourned. Thank you all.